Hello, my name is Michael Damiano, and I will be doing a presentation on the 1986 Chernobyl disaster. Alright, so I'm going to give you a basic rundown on what happened. On April 26, 1986, at 1:23 a.m., the employees of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant were conducting a test to see if the reactor could still operate if there was an event of power loss. Obviously, this did not go according to plan. Steam had managed to build up pressure in the reactor, which caused a steam explosion. The blast from the explosion killed 2 operators. 28 other people, which include firefighters and other employees of the plant, have also perished not too long after due to acute radiation poisoning. The radioactive fumes pouring out of the plant have begun to spread due to the winds, and these fumes will eventually reach the neighboring countries of the Soviet Union. The Swedish government, being one of these neighboring countries, asked the Soviet Union if something was wrong after picking up abnormally large amounts of radiation in the air. The Soviets decided to say that there was nothing wrong. Considering the detrimental effects it could bring and how the situation now involves multiple countries, it's obvious that they couldn't keep such a thing a secret. On April 28th, 2 days after the disaster, the Soviet Union finally breaks its silence through a TV broadcast.
На Чернобыльской атомной электростанции произошла авария. Поврежден один из атомных реакторов. Принимаются меры по ликвидации последствий аварии. Пострадавшим оказывается помощь. Создана правительственная комиссия.
After this, attempts to seal the reactor began not long after. Now, there are a few things that caused this. Firstly, there was a lack of safety culture, which is defined as the attitudes, beliefs, perceptions, and values that employees share in relation to safety in the workplace. This was something that the Soviet Union was not particularly known for. And these next few bullet points will reinforce the statement for lack of safety culture. The reactor was designed in a way which made it unsafe. The reason why it was unsafe is because it had something called a positive void coefficient. In short, if the reactor is at low power, it becomes unstable and can cause power surges. This instability of the reactor played into the steam explosion because the surge created a huge rise in temperature, which reacted with the water, which in turn created the excess steam. On top of this, the reactor operators did not comply with operational procedures, nor were they aware of the potential dangers if a failure were to occur. So when this happened, the citizens of Pripyat, and for those who don't know, Pripyat was a city near Chernobyl. It's about 12 miles away from the plant and had a population of around 50,000 people. These people had no idea that the disaster had occurred. However, it didn't take long for them to notice that something was wrong. The people of Pripyat started to feel ill and had a metallic taste in their mouths. I guess this could play into the lack of safety culture in the Soviet Union as well. They were evacuated a day later, though. On April 27th, around 1,000 buses came to evacuate the city. Originally, it was planned for the people of Pripyat to return 3 days later. As you might have guessed, they never came back. I guess it wasn't the most hasty of evacuations, being that they waited a day, but it could have been worse. In Pripyat, people were receiving around 100 rations a day, in which a ration is a unit of radiation. It has been found that a lethal dose of radiation is around 400 rations. If the people of Pripyat were to stay there for a couple of days longer, it could have been a lot worse. On April 29th, a fleet of 80 helicopters equipped with around 5,000 metric tons, or around 5,500 US tons, worth of sandbags containing sand, boric acid, and other compounds known for absorbing radiation, are sent from Moscow to the plant. The plan was to airdrop this mixture of compounds onto the reactor. These conditions were not favorable for the pilots. At 200 meters above the reactor, pilots were receiving a dose of more than 500 rations per hour. It isn't known what the exact number of Roentgens were because the dosimeters, which are used to measure the amount of radiation, only went up to 500 Roentgens. A lethal dose will be received in less than an hour, not to mention the scorching heat coming from the reactor. One helicopter even crashed after colliding with the cable of a construction crane close by. The 4-man crew in the helicopter did not survive. And despite all these sacrifices made by these men, it was complete failure. It was found that none of the radiation-absorbing compounds even reached the core of the reactor. They eventually do seal it off, though. A couple of months down the line, in November to be exact, a structure called the sarcophagus was mounted to the plant. This large structure spanned over the portion of the building containing the reactor. It would come to fruition that sealing the reactor from the top was not enough to prevent further destruction. Beneath the reactor, there are bubbler pools. These large pools of water were needed in the case of emergency cooling. At the time, these bubbler pools were flooded due to the ruptured pipes, as well as the water accumulated from the firefighters during the first night of the disaster. There was a cement slab separating the reactor from these bubbler pools, but the radioactive magma within the reactor threatens to crack the cement slab. If the slab cracks, magma will seep through, reaching the bubbler pools that can potentially make another devastating steam explosion. This video shows how the situation could have unfolded.
Our experiment today illustrates how rapidly heat can be transferred from lava and for that water to then be transformed to steam. And of course, as steam is produced, the water molecules spread out at a space that takes up 1,000 more times space than in water. As it does so, energy is released.
The pressure released during drilling could cause water running deep underground to rapidly boil and expand. Not even rock can contain the explosive expansion of water flash boiled by magma. The escaping gas would rip to the surface in a man-made phreatomagmatic eruption.
Firefighters are called in to drain the water from the bubbler pools, and they manage to do so successfully. However, this was still not enough. The magma eventually seeps through the slab and will continue to melt through the ground below. There was a small chance of this happening, but it was speculated that the magma could eventually sink to the aquifer below. To put it short, an aquifer is an underground layer of water. If the magma reached there, we could still be facing another steam explosion. A team of miners are sent to dig an underground tunnel reaching below the reactor. Once the tunnel was constructed, a cooling system containing liquid nitrogen would be placed there. After 1 month of non-stop tunneling, the tunnel was constructed and the device was successfully placed below the reactor. In the end, this was not a good thing for the Soviet Union. Big surprise. The Soviet Union had to dish out 18 billion rubles for containment and decontamination costs, which cost around the same in USD at the time. I put this into an inflation calculator to see how much it was. Today, it almost cost $41 trillion. That's enough for like 3 semesters at NGIT. Anyways, there are 31 confirmed deaths from this accident. However, the potential amount of deaths due to radiation are astronomical when compared to this number. Back in 2006, the World Health Organization stated that 5,000 people who were in the surrounding countries and were children at the time of Chernobyl had been diagnosed with thyroid cancer. They would go on to predict that there will be in excess of 9,000 cancer deaths in the surrounding countries due to Chernobyl. If there was anything good to come out of Chernobyl, it'd be the fact that it really substantiated a new policy in the Soviet Union known as Glasnost. This policy made the government more open and transparent, which improved relations between the Soviet Union and the United States. And one more thing, I thought this was interesting. It's going to take another 20,000 years for the area around Chernobyl to be habitable by humans again. So, mark your calendars. These are the references that I've used for this presentation. Thank you.